Hi everyone, my name is Jose Amezquita Morales. I'm with the Ring of Democracy, a nonprofit organization that has a mission to engage, educate, organize, and mobilize historically marginalized communities. And today our focus is to bolster civic engagement, and we're doing that through having candidate interviews. So today we're here with my friend Rehana. She's running for Elk Grove Unified School District, Area 7. So thank you for coming, Rehana.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much. So just so people know about you, our focus is to make sure people out there, the everyday people, know about these races, why they're important. Like, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you decided to run for Elk Grove Unified School District?
Yeah. Hi everyone. I'm Rehana Rehman. I am excited to be here, and I'm running for Elk Grove School Board, mainly in part because I have 3 kids at EGUSD currently. I have 4 total, 1 at Folsom Lake and 3 within EGUSD, 1 in high school and 2 in elementary. And honestly, this whole thing got started because I had some amazing teachers at McGarvey Elementary who saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And with their nudge and push, they kept sending me this flyer for school board, and they were like, "You'd be great at this." And at first, I was kind of very doubtful, and I spent a lot of time volunteering at the elementary school. I'm a community activist. I like to do a lot of things for the school community, and so I think that is what kind of pushed me along. And I went to the meeting, and now 3 months later, here's where I landed, and I'm excited to not only represent the community, but as somebody who is of South Asian heritage and has had faith as being practicing Muslim, and also just my identity as a first-generation American. I really think it's important. I think representation is important, but my upbringing has shaped my values in inclusion, empathy, and service to others. And part of running for school board, I feel like that is a big part of who I am, and I want to bring that to the community and help all people, not just my small community. And Area 7 is quite large, and so I'm hoping to really make an impact in terms of representation for the larger Area 7.
Awesome. And that's one thing I've always liked about school board races. It allows people like the opportunity, people that have never probably considered running for office, to actually get the opportunity because it's so focused in your community. Like a lot of these other races are so big, they spread all over the place. But like these are like very like nitty gritty, like you're in the community, and like I love that a parent was able to like get recruited and actually like go for it,
Yeah.
So yeah, like probably like you've been out campaigning, you've been out knocking on doors. Like what are some of the biggest issues that you've been hearing from folks, or maybe that you had going in that you think, oh, I need to address this if I'm elected in November?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
So I think one of the biggest things is probably having more schools. I mean, many don't know this, and I learned this actually shortly after joining, being part of EGUSD, is that EGUSD is the 5th largest school district in the state, and probably, within the next 5 to 10 years, growing, and probably will move into that number 2 spot. We're the 2nd largest in Northern California, so it's very large, and we have big population, and so I would say, and Area 7, if you were to look at my district, it is quite wide and actually does not include Elk Grove zip code in it whatsoever. It's Rancho Marietta, Rancho Cordova, Slough House, Wilton, and a large part of southeast Sacramento. And so what that also means is there's all that urban farming area, although a big population in pockets, schools, the middle school and high school are kind of far away. So depending on which area I'm speaking to voters when I'm walking, that is probably the biggest thing, is needing more schools. One of the things I'd like to focus on is probably reduction of class sizes, having smaller class sizes for all the students. And I think EGUSD just passed the facilities master plan. It was just approved by the board, and I think that is in motion to build some more schools for our area in particular. And so I think that will help alleviate. So one of the things that I enjoy about going door to door is you really get to talk to people, everyday people who either feel very passionate or strong about their views, whether there's schools or programming, et cetera. But the other piece is I think they don't expect people to come door to door and talk to them, and that I'm just an everyday human and I'm a parent who cares and actually, wants to know what their concerns are. So it's been a good space. I will say I've heard probably, from A to Z, quite a lot of feedback in terms of what they would like to see. My focus will be around resources for the underserved communities within EGUSD, and then also, what we can do to help with, once these schools are built, like the reduction of class sizes, and then also getting our academic standards up. Math and early literacy, those are a big focus for me as just a parent, and so I would like to make sure that I'm advocating for that once I'm elected.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, because especially we all went through this big global pandemic, and it affected a lot of students at home because they had to start doing school from home, and the lines were blurred. Like, you're at home, but you're also forced to be on a computer. Like, I was in college at that time. My sister was in high school, like just started high school, so that transition and just like the loss in learning was very big. What is one thing in particular that you would work on to make sure you address that, getting kids caught up, because a lot of them are behind. A lot of them, even before the pandemic, their literacy and their math skills were falling behind. And what's one thing you're trying to prioritize to make sure those levels get back up and exceed the goals that the district might have right now?
Yeah, so I think, and it's interesting because I personally saw this with my own kids. I mean, I would say at that time I had a high schooler and a middle schooler, and then my son who was in first grade when the pandemic hit. And then I also have a younger daughter who was in pre-K. So I could say for her, socially, she had a really hard time when post-pandemic trying to go into school, adjusting to that. So there was more social issues there, For my son, I can definitely say literacy was probably hard because he was right at that first grade year where he's learning to read, but then had to switch to Zoom. So one of the things I think is really important, and I've had quite a few conversations with educators right now, just as I've been trying to keep a close eye on my children's success in those spaces. And a lot of it is basically comes down to understanding, are the teachers equipped with the proper training? And they're already equipped, but how are they kind of pivoting to address those issues right now with early literacy, especially kids who've already gone through the Zoom school and now coming out and maybe not showing as much strength in that area, right? So first, I think the first step is really to identify the gap, and where are those gaps, and how do those gaps, what do you see across the board from student to student, right? And then the other part is what do we need to do in terms of advocacy and training to make sure everybody's equipped to help those students. So I think part of it is really first identifying that there is a shortage. And I know we all can talk about it, say, yeah, post-pandemic, we've seen, scores go down, or we've seen all these things, but how are we addressing it? So I think what I will be focused on is making sure that from each school site that we are focused across the board, not just at where my kids go to school, at all the schools, what we're doing to actually address that issue, and then, actually take the data or take the work that we're doing and how do we quantify it, right? To an audience, to like a parent, to say, hey, your student was here, but how are we getting there? So I think it's really going to take kind of more collaboration between not only the board, but just the district, the educators and the families to really understand it and then address it, from a more granular level versus just kind of a blanket statement that, yeah, we've seen the scores go down, how are we going to address it? And I think it has to be student per student.
Yeah. I love that answer, because one thing I got from that is also the collaboration, because it takes a team effort. A lot of these people that get put in these positions by voters, they're the people that are in charge, but they can't do it alone. If you were to be on the school board, you have to collaborate with the teachers to truly understand. So yeah, another thing, since we were talking about literacy, sadly in this country we see probably, or not sadly, but it's a fact that books are being banned, and conversations around censorship and what that means in different school districts and how that's incorporated. Sometimes there is a need for that, sometimes it's going too far. But in your opinion, how do you plan on addressing those concerns from parents that might have genuine concern about these issues, and how do you plan on moving forward on that?
So I think one of the biggest things, and what I've learned from just also canvassing, is people want to be heard, and I think what I'm really good at, and maybe that's being, the eldest of 5 kids and having to learn to corral, like, is being a good listener and being able to understand, right? Moving forward with empathy, and I think a lot of the times when people have complaints about stuff, whether it's books or whatever, right? It's just they either don't have the full picture, they don't have all the, they don't have all the missing pieces, and part of it is like, hey, I feel a certain way, I just want someone to be heard, right? And so I think my goal in this is like making sure I am listening to all people, and so I think when it comes to, honestly, if I kind of distill it down, when it comes to book banning, like, I don't know if that's an effective way, I can understand some things are case by case, but what I think is best is for people to have a conversation, whether that's within their own families with students and their own parents, or students and educators, but having those conversations is what's important, and then also listening to a parent's issue, I personally don't agree with book banning. I think, education is key, and the more information we have is better. But obviously, everything has to be age appropriate and whatnot, right? And so, and it should be case by case. But I'm not going to be one of those board members that feels like, we need to shut this down or we need to ban this. That's just not the way I operate. I think having conversations, making sure someone feels like, hey, I can relate to this person because they feel a certain way. And I think a lot of it boils down to not feeling heard, right? So how do you make sure someone's opinion or perspective or feedback is valued? And I think that's what I'm going to kind of lean in on, is just making sure I'm listening and understanding where someone's coming from, even if we disagree, even if maybe we can agree to disagree, but having that come to the table moment and saying like, hey, I don't agree with this. I don't think this book should be in this library for whatever reason, but right, that person should be able to come to the district or to the school board or to an educator and be able to share their understanding, but also be willing to and be aware that there's going to be a different perspective, perhaps.
I love that. One thing I've always thought about is we're missing a lot of that collaboration, the civility, but also we do have opportunities to uplift voices that are historically not represented on a lot of these boards. What would it mean for you, coming from your background, to be elected onto the school board and to represent, like you said, the community as a whole, the district as a whole, but specifically to your community? Because I feel like there is sometimes a lack of representation on some of these boards because, one, it's either they don't know about these positions, they don't want to do it because it's intimidating, but what would it mean for you to be a mom from your background, be able to sit on that board and make decisions that affect your community?
I mean, it's so powerful. And I can tell you, the one defining moment in this journey so far was when I had decided that this was something I wanted to do. I sat at the table with my family, and it was my 15-year-old daughter who, when I was like, I don't know, should I do this? Should I not do this? It was my 15-year-old who was like, Mom, you always tell us to be an advocate for ourselves, and you always tell us to speak up. And she's like, why aren't you going to do this when you have an opportunity to advocate for so many others? And I mean, when I, zoom out of that, right? That was within my own family, but when I zoom out of that and think about, the first moment I walked into McGarvey Elementary, and that's where my kids go to school, there was a plaque on there, and this school was built about 7 years ago, and it has all the board members listed. And I remember seeing who she now is the mayor of Elk Grove, but I remember seeing Bobby St. Allen's name, and the minute I saw her name, I knew she was of South Asian descent. And I remember the first thing that clicked for me was I was like, wait a minute. I was like, there's a South Asian woman on the school board? It's not something I've grown up seeing. I haven't seen a lot of other Muslim or South Asian or as many, to be honest, people of color in spaces, in these type of spaces, and so it felt really good just to kind of even see that representation. So I, as an adult, it had that impact on me. I can't imagine what it could be like for impressionable young children, right? Like another South Asian child, or even just a person of color, be like, hey, this person is doing this, why can't I? And if it could inspire one student, even if it's my own, great. But I'm hoping that that effect happens to many others, and I hope that it motivates and pushes kids to, color outside the lines, and look. I mean, as after school special as it may sound, like actually, go beyond, just the parameters that we set for ourselves.
I love that. I always get so excited seeing like first time candidates like put themselves out there. As you know, like a lot of the political systems are already like established. Like how, kind of like to wrap up, like how has it been like for you trying to get into this political space? And like what would you say to other first time candidates that are trying to navigate and want to understand? Because a lot of this is like kind of, there's a lot of like handshaking, a lot of like meeting people to meet other people. Like how, like what's one piece of advice that you would give out to another like first time candidate?
Honestly, I think the best thing is to be yourself. Like, I am hoping, there's no guidebook. No one gives you a guidebook on how to run. And I think and everyone has really great intentions, well-intentioned advice that people will give you. But I think one of the things I have really, held on to is just being myself, and trying to make a deep connection. I'm somebody who cares deeply about connection. Like I am a people person, I'm a hyper extrovert, and for me it's important to find something that I connect with someone over, whether it's food, whether it's, a sports team, you name it, like find a connection, because I think if we zoom out of just even being, looking at it from an office space, right? All of us are connected because we're humans and we find something to relate on, right? And so that relatability and being yourself are really important. And I think the other piece is like, it's a ride. And, what I know now compared to like if I were to look back 3 months ago, it's vastly different. And it's always about right? It's not about the destination, it's about the journey. So it's kind of being able to take the learnings that I've learned here and how do I apply it, win or lose. I mean, I'm planning to win, and I'm hoping, I'm manifesting that I will be the next, trustee for Area 7. However, regardless of the destination, it's about that journey, right? So am I being true to myself? Am I doing things with integrity and with my value system still intact and not having to have that shaken? And I think the most important thing is really having a strong support system, whether that's your family, whether it's like your trusted board of advisors, people who are helping support you, like being able to lean into that is key, because there's moments where you're going to, feel a little defeated or feel demoralized or have moments of self-doubt and, imposter syndrome, you name it, it'll find ways to creep in. And so whether it's, you have to do your morning affirmations, in front of the mirror, or you need family members to help, boost you back up, or I think having that strong support system is key. And I think that whole piece of the power of connection really allows you, whether that's whoever that you're choosing to lean on, to people to help you say, hey, you got this, you can do this. And, we're all human and we're not, we make mistakes, but being able to, pick yourself back up is what's important, and staying true to yourself.
I love that. I'm like definitely leaving today like feeling energized and feeling motivated. So thank you so much for sitting down with us at the Ring of Democracy. Please make sure to check out more of our videos as we continue to have more of these candidate sit-down conversations. And yeah, thank you so much.